Okay, let's just give it one more second. Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody. It's good to see so many different ears, different people. It's always nice to see you all. Um, we're going to be talking about the Rosh Hashanah Tfilos, which is not really just the Rosh Hashanah Tfilos, because the bulk of the Shemona Esrei, as I'm sure you're aware, is the same for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur. So it's really the Yomim Noraim Tfilos that we're going to be focusing on. Next week, when we talk more about Yom Kippur, we're going to be zooming in more on specifically the Vidui and what we're doing and what we're saying and what we're trying to accomplish when we specifically say the Vidui. But for now, tonight we're going to be starting with the main text of the tefillah that we say both on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Uvechein Tein Pachtecha, that whole section. So I mentioned if you do have a Machzor with you, it might be helpful to follow along and see what it is that we're talking about. What we're going to be speaking about primarily, basically all of it really comes from the Ramchal. Not a big surprise there, but the Ramchal has a sefer called Ma'amar HaChachma, in which he really goes through the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur Tfilos, literally line by line, and really gives his perush and explanation of the Tfilos about what it is that we're trying to accomplish with our Tfilos on Rosh Hashanah. What are we doing over here? What are the specific bakashos that we are making? What are they all about? So before we get into the actual text, let's just take a step back and zoom out for a moment and just sort of put it into the context of what it is that's going on Rosh Hashanah. So the sefer that I'm actually quoting now from, it's a sefer that was put out recently it's called Mimishnaso Shel Ramchal on the Yomim Noraim, and it's written actually, Rav Chaim Friedlander, who was the Mashgiach in Panovich Yeshiva. Rav Chaim Friedlander is the person probably most responsible for the works of the Ramchal that we have today. He dedicated his life, in addition to being a tremendous Baal Machshava, he wrote all the Svarim. Many people are aware of Sifsei Chaim, like those blue Svarim, Sifsei Chaim on the Yamim Tovim and on Emunah and Bitachon. He has many, many Svarim, maybe 10 different volumes of Sifsei Chaim that a lot of people have learned from or hopefully are familiar with. But in addition to being a tremendous mashgiach and a big Baal Machshava, and he was a student of Rav Dessler, he was also a very, very, very big student of the Ramchal. And many of the Svarim that we have today available from the Ramchal are because of Rav Chaim Friedlander's dedication. He would literally travel around the world, like going into London, to the British Museum, into their archives, into JTS in America, the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is like a conservative yeshiva, I guess is what you would call it, who also has a tremendous archive of old svarim, of old kisvei yad, handwritten works that had never been published. And Rav Chaim Friedlander spent decades of his life traveling to these places and finding previous works from the Ramchal that had never been published before, and publishing them and bringing them into the public sphere. In addition, Rav Chaim Friedlander was the one who found the Svarim of Rav Moshe David Vali. Those of you who know me, so I've been very attached to these Svarim. Rav Moshe David Vali was alive at the same time as the Ramchal in Padua, in Italy. He was also a very, tremendous thinker and a mekubal and a very special person. And his Svarim had been literally just disappeared for 250 years until Rav Chaim Friedlander found them. And by that time, he was already too old to bring those Svarim to print. So he tasked his student, Rabbi Yosef Spinner, my Rebbe, he asked Rabbi Spinner to be the one to find those Svarim and to bring them to print. So Rav Chaim Friedlander really is the source of a tremendous amount of Torah that we have available in our generation that was not available in earlier generations. Anyway, he's not alive anymore. He passed away, I think, in the 1980s. But his son now also writes Svarim like this. So this sefer that I'm quoting from is the son of Rav Chaim Friedlander, Nehemia Friedlander, then Rechaim Friedlander, and so he's the one who most of what I'm going to be saying that's not straight from the Ramchal is from what he writes in his Sefer here about the whole concept of Maimar HaChachma and what we're doing on Rosh Hashanah. And he explains as follows, right? On Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Haras Olam, right? This is the day that the world began, meaning the sixth day of creation. Right now, right, today is, let's say it's Monday for you, also Sunday night, Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're in the third day of creation now, right? We're approaching Rosh Hashanah. So today was the day when the waters were receding and everything, the Ma'oros were being set up, everything that was happening in creation, but it finishes with the creation of Adam Harishon, right? Hayom Haras Olam, when we say that on Rosh Hashanah, today is the start of the world. It means that's the day that Adam Harishon came into existence, and that's his birthday. Happens to be my birthday also, Rosh Hashanah, first day of Rosh Hashanah. Just a coincidence, me and Adam, and it's the day that the world started functionally, like even though the physical planet had existed already for a couple of days, right, as it was being populated with plants and then animals. But Adam Arishon is the pinnacle of creation, right? The point of creation was for there to be an Adam, for there to be a person. So we celebrate and recognize Rosh Hashanah as the day that Adam Harishon was created. So Rav Friedlander here points out that along with the creation of Adam Harishon was also the creation of tefillah, right? The whole concept of tefillah was introduced with Adam Harishon. And we know this because Chazal tell us, Rashi brings this on the Chumash, right? The Pasuk says, V'chol siach hasada terem yiyeh ba'aretz, v'chol eishev hasada terem yitzmach, that all of the plant life, all of the trees, all of the plants, before they actually grew, they had not yet grown, they had not yet actually sprouted. Ki lo himtir Hashem Elokim al haaretz, because Hashem hadn't caused it to rain yet. V'adam ayin la'avod as ha'adama, and there was not yet man to work the ground. La'avod as ha'adama. So the way that the world was set up, as Rashi explains from Chazal, that all of the plant life, all the trees and all the bushes and all the vegetation was underground, right? It was just at the edge of the ground, like it had already been created. I guess it already had taken root, physically. However, nothing broke through the ground. Nothing actually started growing up out of the ground. Why? Because there was not yet rain from Shemayim, because there was not yet man to work the ground. And Rashi then quotes from Chazal. What does this mean? This, if you want the sources, Bereshis, Perek Beis, Pasuk Ches. What does it mean that there was no yet man to work the ground? V'chol esav asada terem yitzmach. Rashi says, Adayin lo tzamach. It didn't grow yet, right? Al Pesach karka amdu. It was waiting right at the top, right at the opening of the ground, ad yom shishi, until the sixth day, which that's again Rosh Hashanah. So it was waiting for that day to come. Why? Kilo himtir. Why didn't it rain? Lefisha adam ayin la'avodas hadama ve'ein makir betovasan shel geshamim, because there was nobody yet available to express appreciation, to have hakaras hatov to Hashem for the rain. And what's the purpose of vegetation? Is to serve man, right? To be there for us to eat and to use. And if there's not any man yet available to appreciate it, so then there's no point for that vegetation to exist. So all the vegetation was waiting for the creation of man for two things. One, Rashi says, so that man would be makir tov, right? So that a person would be alive to appreciate the fact that Hashem was providing them with this vegetation. But furthermore, ukeshaba Adam, when Adam was created, v'yada shehem tzorech la'olam, and he realized that we need vegetation, we need trees, we need bushes, we need grass, we need all of this stuff. Hispalel aleihem, he davened for them. He looked around, he saw a barren landscape. There wasn't the beautiful, lush garden that we picture when Adam was created. It was all barren. because again, all the vegetation was still underground. And then Adam davened, right? Hispalel aleihem v'yardu, and then the rain came down. V'tzamchu ha'ilanos v'hadashayim, and then all the trees and the grass sprouted forth. Obviously, it grew miraculously. It grew very quickly and became a very lush, beautiful landscape. But that only happened once Adam Arishon was there for two purposes. One, to be makir tov, to appreciate and express hakaras hatov to Hashem for the rain, and two, to daven for that rain to come, to daven for the tzemach to grow, to daven for the needs that he had. Just as a side point, there's a very fascinating Maharal on this pasuk. The Maharal in the Gur Aryeh, his Perush on the Chumash, he says, you see from here that it's asur to do a tova for somebody if they're not going to be makir tov, which is pretty powerful. He literally says those words, mikansha asur. It's asur to do something for somebody if they're not going to appreciate it, if they're just going to take it for granted and they're not going to express a karas hatov either to you or to Hashem. So what are you doing a chesed for them for? You see from here, the whole point of providing for people is so that people can express that hakaras hatov. So I don't know how that applies halachically. I think we still give tzedakah to people even if they won't appreciate it, and we still do chasadim. But you see, at the very least, the tremendous importance of hakaras hatov, right? And certainly when we get good things from people, right, a huge component in getting that good is our reciprocating our response with that hakaras hatov. You see how crucial the midah of hakaras hatov is, at least from that, from that Maharal and from these psukim. But Rav Friedlander points out then something really, really powerful from this, that tefillah started also on Rosh Hashanah. Right, Rosh Hashanah was the day not only that Adam Arishon was created, but it seems that as significant as the creation of man was also the sort of the creation of tefillah. It was the first time that the world was set up that it needed tefillah to happen, and that tefillah actually happened and produced results. Right, it was the first time that somebody prayed was on this day, the day of Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, he says, just like we know the concept of the cycle of time, right? I'm sure we've all heard this, in many different ways throughout our education, that in the Jewish calendar, it's not just days that we have that commemorate important events or commemorate, Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? But it's those days, it's like a spiral, right? The Shefa in Shemayim, whatever was happening in Shemayim on the first night of Pesach, it's happening again every year, right, on Tesvav Nisan. And that's why we have all of our avoda and all of our mitzvos and all the things that we do to tap into what that spiritual reality is that happens on that day. So he says, so too when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, in addition to everything else that's happening on this day, yes, we're being judged, and yes, our future is being determined, etc. However, it's also a day for tapping into the power of tefillah. Right? If this is the day that tefillah began, that tefillah originated, and that Hashem was waiting for somebody to come and daven in order to provide for them, so then Rosh Hashanah is a special day that is mesugal, that is set aside for tefillah, and for those tefillos to be said, and for those tefillos to be answered. And he quotes here from the Ramchal in the Sefer Derech Hashem, it's a pretty famous concept that the Ramchal mentions, that's often quoted when it comes to the concept of tefillah, that even if there's something that we are supposed to get, right? Very often we picture tefillah like, davening for something, and I don't want to say changing Hashem's mind. I'm not going to get into the whole thing of, Yediyah and Bechira and all of that, right? But usually we picture davening as like asking Hashem for something, and then Hashem, because we davened for it, so then Hashem will say, okay, so let's give it to this person, something along those lines. But the Ramchal explains that there's another massive aspect of tefillah, which is even something that we're supposed to be getting. It's literally there. It's in Shemayim. It's waiting for us. It's just like the plants. We're waiting for Adam Arishon. It's something that we are, quote unquote, supposed to get. We already deserve it, or we already have earned it, or whatever the lashon is. Even if there's something that we are supposed to be getting, Hashem waits for our tefillah for us to receive it. Meaning, tefillah is a fundamental part of the whole give and take between man and Hashem. That Hashem is not just there to provide for us and give us what he has for us. He wants our tfilos, right? That whole concept of Kadosh Baruch Hu Betzapan, the tfilason sel tzadikim, right? Hashem sometimes, right, gives people tsaros in order for them to be woken up to daven in order to take the tzara away. And so too, something good. A person might be, again, deserving something. It might be up there literally in Shemayim, sort of waiting to come down to the person. But if the person doesn't daven for it and doesn't sort of open up that channel through tefillah, so then the thing will stay there in Shemayim. It won't come down to that person. So tefillah is not only just asking Hashem for things and begging Hashem and saying, please, can I have something? The idea is that it's a channel that exists between man and God. And it's a channel that we use we open up that channel by davening, right? Something that is meant to come to us and is supposed to be there for us. When we daven for it, that's what allows it to come down. And, that it provides for us. Without that tefillah, it could be that thing wouldn't happen, right? We don't know the cheshbonos of Hashem, and certainly Hashem does provide for people without tefillah, but that's a tragedy. That's like like the Nachash when he gets his food without having to ask Hashem for it. That it's a tragedy when a person gets something without having davened for it, right? It's outside. That's like. Nahama de Chisufa, that's just like a freebie. Like Hashem doesn't want to be bothered with that person, so he just gives him his stuff. When we daven for the things that we're supposed to be getting and we get them that way, that's the way the world is supposed to work. When people get things without davening for it, so that's it's like a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not like, oh wow, I got it even before I asked for it. That means that Hashem wasn't waiting for your tefillah. Hashem didn't need that tefillah from you, right? But the regular seder hadvarim, the regular course of events and the way things are supposed to happen is that things are there. They're waiting for us. They're supposed to happen. However, it still needs that tefillah from us. It needs us to be turning to Hashem and sort of unlocking that channel, opening up that lane to allow for that good to come down to us. And again, that's exactly the dynamic that we see was created on Rosh Hashana, right? All the plants were there. They were ready to grow. Hashem could have made them grow without that tefillah, right? But the whole point is that he wanted there to be a person there to unlock that goodness that was coming to them anyway through the power of tefillah. Okay, so that's number one. That's introduction number one. That everything we're going to be davening for, and we're going to see now in Rosh Hashanah, what we're davening for is, for the final geula to happen, and we're davening for the tikkun in the world to take place, and for everything to be fixed up, and for everything to be the way it's supposed to be. So that's number one, that we have to recognize and realize that even if it's there and it's sort of like waiting for us, right? It's waiting for our tefillos. It's waiting for our davening. So that's number one. Why a person shouldn't say like, what is my tefillah worth, so to speak? Like, who am I to daven for the tikkun of the world? So there's going to be a second answer to that in a second. But answer number one is, well, that's the way it works. It works that it could be you already earned it. You already deserve it. It's already there waiting for you, right? However, it's the tefillah that we say that unlocks that channel and lets the shefa come down. So that's idea number one, as we're focusing on our tefillos on Rosh Hashanah and what we're going to be working on. So to recognize that what we're davening for is not necessarily things that we are earning through these tefillos, right? The geula might be right there waiting to happen, but it needs our tefillos in order for it to come through. Point number two, that also, which is sometimes that people feel discouraged in their tefillos, especially when we're talking about davening for big things, right? When we're davening for little, I guess, not even little, even sometimes big things, but we're davening for personal bakashos. So there's something that we feel a certain personal connection to Hashem, a certain personal relationship, and we feel that, Hashem wants my tefillos, and Hashem wants me to daven for this refuah shalema, or he wants me to daven to get this job, or to get this shidduch, or whatever it is, right? There's it sort of makes sense to us that there's this dynamic of us davening to Hashem and Hashem responding to us. However, when it comes to davening for big things that are way beyond me, for instance, like davening for the geula to happen, right? Davening for there to be peace in Eretz Yisrael and peace in the world, which is so big and so beyond me. And like obviously there are bigger people than I am who are davening for these things. So like what's my tefillah worth? Why is it that my tefillah should really matter on that scale? And especially like when we're talking about on Rosh Hashana, as we're going to see soon, that we're literally davening for the final tikkun to happen. We're davening for the world to be fixed and for everybody in the world, Jews and non-Jews alike. We're davening for everyone to find their tikkun and to be fixed up and let the world run in the way it's supposed to be. So a person can feel like, well, come on, who am I and what's my little tefillah sitting in shul? What's the value of that it matters whether I actually daven for it or not, right? There's great tzaddikim that are in the world. There's all sorts of special people who are davening, and I'm sure they have much better kavanah than I have, and I'm sure they focus much better, and I'm sure they've got less sins than I have, and all of that. Why would my tefillah really matter? And it happens to be the Ramchal addresses this explicitly in Mesilas Yesharim. He says as follows. This is in Perek Yud Tes. It's like deeper into the Sefer already, but he says exactly the following. And I'll read to you from what he says over here. And this should give us all chizuk. It should give us encouragement and empower us to daven and to realize that no matter who we are and how small we maybe think we are, that our tefillos are huge and crucial. And there's no such thing as somebody too small to daven for even the biggest things to happen in the world. And he says as follows: V'im yomar ha'adam, if a person would say, Mi ani, uma ani safun she'espalel ha'galus val Yerushalayim, who am I? Who, I'm so small. What are my tefillos actually worth if I daven for Yerushalayim and for the Geula and for Galus to end and these types of things? What's really my tefillah? Little me, Moshe Rosenstein, sitting over here, among thousands of people and, great tzaddikim and all these things that are so much bigger than I am. What's really my davening is going to make the difference. My davening is going to bring in the people from Galus and bring the Yeshua. Chuvaso betzido. So he says, yes, the answer is as follows, that the Torah tells us, Lefichach nivra adam yachidi. Why was it that Adam Harishon was created as a single person? Because every person has to say, this universe was created for me. Ukvarna, meaning that it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing or not doing. It doesn't matter that there are big tzaddikim maybe that are davening also for this, right? That has nothing to do with me. I have to view this entire universe as if it depends on me. Bishvili nivra ha'olam. And yes, my job, my avoda, is to see that my tefillos matter, right? As if there's nobody else in the world, right? Maybe everybody else in the world is a hologram, a golem, an illusion. I have no idea, right? Maybe it's just me. It's only me over here, and my tefillos. That's what matters. Bishvili nivra ha'olam. Ukvar nachas ruachu lefanav yisbarach shiu banav mevakshim u'mispalim alzos. This is what Hashem wants. He wants that every single Jew, big and small, no matter how small we are, this is what he wants from us. He wants us to be davening for these big things. And even if that tefillah is not answered, or it doesn't seem to be answered because it's not the right time, or because Hashem has whatever other cheshbonos he has, so I can't say, well, look, I davened for this so many years already and it hasn't happened, right? So what's the point of davening this year? Chas v'shalom. Hidehem asu es shalahem v'kadosh baruch hu samach bezeh. This is what Hashem wants from me. Hashem wants from every single person, no matter how small they think they are, no matter how insignificant they may feel their tefillos are, Hashem wants every single person to be davening for these big, big things. We have no heter to say, no, it's not for me to daven because I'm too weak. My tefillos don't count. right? Like the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, it's not for me to finish all the work, right? However, it's also, I can't not do it at all. Meaning, even though a person might feel so small, even though a person might feel so insignificant and that their tefillos are really not going to change the world over. So he tells us two things. First of all, yes, they can. And I have to view it as if it's only me and my tefillos that count. That's the only thing that's under my control. And I have to view that the entire universe is dependent on me and how I'm going to daven this Rosh Hashanah for the Geula to happen. And even if I'm discouraged because I feel like I daven and it doesn't happen, that has no bearing. Every one of those tefillos that I said is precious and special and accomplishing something in Shemayim, even if I don't see the result of it over here in the world. And eventually, when it's going to happen, Amir Hashem Bekarov, but eventually when it's going to happen, we're going to see how every single one of those tefillos played a part. Every single one of those times that a person davened for the Geula, and we said in Shmona Esrei, we say every single day, right? A person could just like run through those lines and not even really think about it so much, right? But he's telling us that a person has to see that it's dependent on me and my tefillos, and we're going to see when the Geula happens. We're going to see how every single one of my tefillos accomplished something and played its part in leading to the Geula. Okay, so there's a lot more to say about this, but I think that's enough, for now, just to understand again these 2 points. Number one, our tefillos on Rosh Hashanah, even though we're going to see now, we're davening for the biggest things. We're davening, right, for the ultimate tikkun to happen. We're davening for things that people have been davening for generations, and it hasn't happened yet. Right, so for me to feel like what's my tefillah worth? So number one, to recognize, like I said at the first piece, that it might be there and it might be ready. It might be mamish right there, ready to come down and waiting to come down, and it just needs my tefillah to unlock it and bring it down. And number two, no matter how small I think I am, this is what Hashem wants from me. Hashem wants me to be davening for these big, grandiose, huge things to happen, and I have to view my part as if I'm the only one that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody else is or is not doing. Bishvili nevra olam. The entire universe is dependent on me and my tefillos that I'm going to say on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so with that in mind, with this backdrop and this context in mind, so now let's take a look in the Machzor, and we're going to work our way through the tefillos and see what it is that we're actually davening for on Rosh Hashanah. So if you have a Machzor in front of you, so you can open up to Ma'ariv for the first night of Rosh Hashanah. Ma'ariv is the first time that we say this Shmona Esrei with the additions. So we say, first of all, just we shouldn't forget, right? We start saying the additions that we say in Shmona Esrei, Mikel Kamocha and Melech HaKadosh, right? All of those additions we start on Rosh Hashanah, and have to make sure to try to remember to say them. It's a good idea for even on Rosh Hashanah, even if we know the first bracha or by heart and Mechayim Mesim by heart, it's a good idea to daven from a Machzor on Rosh Hashanah so that we make sure that we are tuned in and don't forget the additions that we're supposed to be adding into Shmona Esrei. And then in the third bracha, the bracha of Ata Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh, so we break that bracha up on Rosh Hashanah, right? When normally we say Ata Kadosh Shimcha Kadosh Kadosh b'chol yom yelchuzela Baruch Hashem al Kel Kadosh, right? But on Rosh Hashanah we stop in the middle and we have the whole first section of the davening as part of the bracha of Hamelech HaKadosh, right? And it says as follows. So we're going to see what the Ramchal says. Before we get to V'chein Tein Pachtacha, he tells us a little bit before what it is that we are davening for in the tefillos of Rosh Hashanah. And he tells us as follows. B'kedushas Hashem on Rosh Hashanah, so a lot of our Sidurim, we only have this in Chazaras Hashatz, the piece that he's referring to now, when it says, U'v'chein yiskadesh shimcha ba'olam. We don't have this in our regular Shmona Esrei, this line. I think that Nusach Edut Mizrach has it, but the regular Ashkenaz Nusach doesn't have it, except during Chazaras Hashatz of Musaf, it starts with U'v'chein yiskadesh shimcha. So he explains, what is this about? What are we davening for when we say, Hashem, your name should be sanctified? So he gives us an introduction here. Now, this is the Ramchal again in Maimar Chachma. I have it here. So one second, we can see it here together. One second. I'll share the screen with you and we'll see this here together. One second. Second. Here. Okay, you can see this on the screen. You can see the text. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
We say that section of Kedusha, we say, Uvechein Yiskadesh Shimcha. We add these words, Hashem, your name should be sanctified. V'ha'inyan da. What are we saying over here? So he says as follows, Kihine, Bechlal ha'olam yesh hatov v'hara. When Hashem created the world, the way that it is structured, there's good and bad, right? There's two opposites that are mixed in to the world. And this concept of good and bad expresses itself in many different ways. Va'anfeihem b'min ha'anoshi, the way that Tov and Ra express themselves among mankind is Yisrael v'umos ha'olam, right? With this Klal Yisrael, and we're here to do the tikkun, we're here to bring the world to its, fixing up. And then the Umas Olam are the ones that are getting in our way and stopping us from doing it and destroying the Beis Hamikdash and doing all the things that stop us from doing our job. V'hine tikkun ha'olam. What is the tikkun? What is the world's fixing up that's going to happen? Hu she'iyah hatov sholet v'hara nichva. The tikkun of the world is when good is dominant and bad is subject, right? When we don't daven that all bad is going to disappear. We don't believe that all the nations of the world are going to disappear when the Geula happens. We believe that the Ra is going to be nichba. It's going to be subjugated. It's going to be in its appropriate place. Uvemin hanoshi Yisrael sholtim v'umos ha'olim mishtabdim tachtehem. Right? What we're davening for spiritually is for Klal Yisrael to be dominant, for Kedusha, right, to be dominant in the world. And again, not that the Umos HaOlam are destroyed, not that they don't exist at all and disappear and, are cast into a lake of fire or who knows what else, like the other religions say, but that they recognize their place, that they recognize the place of Hashem, the place of Am Yisrael, the way that things are supposed to be, and they're mishtabed, right? They are subject, not subjugated like slavery, but subjugated spiritually, that they recognize the structure of the world. V'hine b'yos davar kei hine tov lakol. When it's going to be that way, Mirz Hashem b'mheir v'yameinu, right? It's going to be good for everybody. Ki hine hakedusha mi'ira b'Yisrael mischazkim bam. Because then Kedusha is going to be in Klal Yisrael, and it's going to be strong and strengthened with us. Ubiyos umus olam mishtabdim tachtam niskanim al yedem v'nimshach lehem meshech min kedusha hahi. And because the non-Jews, the other umos ha'olam, are going to recognize the structure, so they're going to also benefit from that. Again, the concept is not that we're davening that all the other nations are destroyed and disappear. We want them to be fixed up also. We want them to find their tikkun as well. Their tikkun is when the world is structured the way it's supposed to be, that Hashem is sending his Kedusha to Am Yisrael, and because the other nations are recognizing their place, and now they're able to tap into that Kedusha as well. However, im umos ha'olam mispartzim mitachas yad Yisrael v'sholtim v'Yisrael nichnayim, if things are the way they have been now for the past 2,000 years, that the umos ha'olam are in charge, and they're the ones who are sort of on top, and Klal Yisrael is the one that's on the bottom, so then that's bad for everybody. Hine Yisrael mafsidim v'umos ha'olam atzmam mafsidim. So everybody loses with this type of a structure. Why? Yisrael mafsidim, the Jewish people lose, shem b'shiflus, v'hakadusha inena mischazekes be'olam. Right? We're losing because we're in a downtrodden state, physically and spiritually, and therefore Kedusha doesn't come into the world the way it's supposed to. We're not in our position of being able to bring down that shefa that comes to us and then is then distributed amongst everybody else in the world. Lefisha makom hamiyuchad la shivu b'Yisrael einene b'tikuno v'chazko. Right, because we're not in the position that we're supposed to be in order for all of the system to work properly. And certainly the rest of the nations of the world are also losing because they're also not getting any of this kedusha now. They themselves keep on getting lower and lower and farther away from the good. Okay, so he's explaining to us that when the world is the way it's supposed to be, and the only time that it was ever like this in history was during Bayis Rishon, during the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. That's when the whole world, all the other kings, recognized the centrality of the Beis Hamikdash. They all recognized that Hashem was the one who was running the world. They all recognized that the Shefa was coming through the Beis Hamikdash and through there getting to them as well. And that was the whole world was in balance. And that's why all the other Umos HaOlam would come and bring gifts to the Beis Hamikdash. And that's when the Torah tells us, Ki beisi beis tefillah l'chol ha'amim, right? Even non-Jews would come to the Beis Hamikdash and daven, and their tefillos would be answered, right? Because the world was working in its appropriate structure at that time. But since then, it has not been that way. Since then, since the end of the Bayis Rishon, even during Bayis Sheni, right, we were subjugated first under Greece and then under Rome, right? And certainly now throughout all the years of Galus, the world is not structured the way it's supposed to be. What's the reason for this? What's the reason that things are the way that they are? He galus malchuso, not galus, but he galus, like the revealing of the malchus Hashem in this world, or it being hidden. Meaning there's two ways that malchus shemayim exists. The malchus of Hashem could either be revealed, in which case that's when everything is running appropriately and it's clear to everybody in the world who God is and who Am Yisrael are and what place everybody has. Or Malchus Shemayim can be hidden, like it is today, where people don't recognize Hashem and don't recognize Am Yisrael. And on the contrary, we're hated on and despised and disparaged. Ki im hi misgales, when Malchus Shemayim is revealed, hine hatov sholet umegia hadavar Yisrael shehem yishletu v'hefech behefech. Right. So when Malchus Shemayim is revealed, so then the good is sholet, the good rules the world, and then everything works. Everything is running the way it's supposed to be. V'hefech behefech. But when it's hidden, so then the opposite happens, and that's the state that the world is in today. Okay, so he's just giving us now the backdrop for the entire structure of the world, right? There's good and bad, and either good is on top and functioning, and that's when the whole system is working, right? Or, unfortunately, bad can be on top, and good can be subject to the bad, and then things don't run the way they're supposed to. And yes, we see the world getting worse and worse every generation. V'ulam. However, B'yom Rosh Hashana, so what does this have to do with Rosh Hashana? On this day, Ha'adon Baruch Hu Omed Kavayachal B'Bechinas Melech Al Olamo. On the day of Rosh Hashanah, since again, this is the day that the world was created, that man was created, and the world was finalized. So this is the day where, again, in that cycle of the way the Jewish calendar works, this is the day where Hashem stands as the Melech on his universe. It's the day of the coronation of Hashem, the recognition of Hashem's Malchus, and this is the day where his Malchus is on the spiritual plane, right? It doesn't break through to the physical plane. That's what all of our tefillos are going to be for. But at least on the spiritual plane, this is the day where the Malchus of Hashem, the kingdom of Hashem, the dominion of Hashem, is expressed on its world. V'alkein, hine hasha ra'uya l'hispalel lefanav. So that's why this day is so appropriate. It's the day that is set aside that we should be davening, that what should happen? Sheyagala malchuso legamre ba'olam. Right? Since the spiritually speaking, Hashem's malchus is right there, spiritually speaking, this is the day where the Malchus of Hashem is ready to rule over the world. So we're davening that it should be actualized. It should not just be in potential, but it should actually happen. Hashem, rule over the world physically. Show yourself, reveal yourself, be megala your malchus on the world. Let the whole world see, all the rishayim, all the terrorists and all the people who support the terrorists and all the kids on the college campuses and all the people on Twitter and whoever else. Like, let the world see who's really in control. Let the world understand what the system is supposed to be like. Shiagale malchuso legamre ba'olam. Let your malchus be revealed to the world. And what would happen? V'yitukan ha'olam al yadei. The world will be fixed, right? That's how the world can get fixed. There's no other way. It doesn't matter if Trump wins or Harris wins. That's not going to fix the world. The only way the world is actually going to get fixed is if Hashem's malchus is revealed to the world. Val ikar zeh nivne kol hanusach hazeh. So on this concept, this idea that we're davening for Hashem's malchus to be revealed, and thereby, I should say, the whole world will be fixed. That is what all of our tefillos are about on Rosh Hashana. Okay, so let's just take stock of what we're saying over here. Is telling us that since Rosh Hashanah is the day where the malchus in Shemayim is most powerfully expressed, so this is the day that we try to latch onto that. We try to grab onto it and daven and say, Hashem, just break through that barrier. Don't let it just be in the spiritual realm that your malchus is expressed over the whole spiritual world. Break it through to the physical world. Come down to us over here, right? And rule over the world, because that's the only way the world is going to be fixed. There's no other tikkun, right? Anything else that we're doing is just like hishtadlus in the meantime to try to live as best as we can. But there's no way that the world is going to be fixed without the malchus of Hashem shining through, right? Like I just, I've thought about this for many years, but it's especially apparent now. The whole issue with Israel and the Palestinians and the Arabs and like all of these things, and it looks so impossible. I think it is impossible. I think there is no natural way it's ever going to get fixed. I don't think there's ever going to be some peace treaty or some breakthrough or who knows what that's actually going to work and let there be peace over here in Eretz Yisrael. I think it's only going to happen when this happens. It's only going to be fixed when Hashem is the one who's going to come and fix it. And literally until that happens, we're just treading water, right? We're just trying to stay alive, obviously. We're trying to do mitzvos as best as we can, but we're not able to fix the world. The only one who can fix the world is Hashem, and the only way that's going to happen is by his malchus being revealed to the world, and that's exactly what we're davening for on Rosh Hashanah. We're davening for a tikkun for the whole world. We're not focusing on our own petty needs and what we are asking for, although there's a place for that. We'll get to that before we finish, right? But we're focusing on the world. We're focusing on every aspect of the world, and we'll see as we go through the rest of the tefillos, that's what the tefillos are all about. Let the world get fixed up, not just me, not just my family, not just Am Yisrael. The entire world, all the goyim, all the non-Jews, all the terrorists, everybody should get fixed by recognizing the malchus of Hashem as it is revealed to the world. And as he tells us, this is the structure of the entire tefillah. Okay, so now he's going to tell us how through the tefillos we see this being expressed, and each piece by piece, we're going to see how everybody gets fixed. Okay, so I'm going to try to read through this somewhat quickly. If you need to, listen to it again, you could do that. But I want to just make sure that we get through the main nusach of the tefillos so we understand what it is that we're asking for. And again, not to forget, like what I said at the very beginning, that chalila v'chalila, don't say, well, who am I and what's my little tefillah worth that can actually fix the world? Yes, you can. Every single one of us has that ability and that power and responsibility to see that it's as if it's my tefillos that are going to make the difference this year. Okay. V'hine betchila nemar yiskadei shimcha. First thing we ask for is that Hashem's name should be sanctified. So what does that mean? V'hainu shiyudea malchuso ba'olam. Right? Let your name be recognized as being holy, meaning that not that like in the angels and in the Shemayim it should be sanctified. It is already sanctified there. We're davening that in the world below it should be recognized. V'yizgala bechaskaska al Yisrael, right? And it should be, like we said before, that happens by Klal Yisrael recognizing it, and that's why we say Al Yisrael Amecha. Va'amnam mizeh yimshachu tikunei ha'olam, and that's not only for us to get fixed. Through us getting fixed, the whole world will be fixed. V'rishon shetikanes yirasi yisbarach believe kol burav yishtabdu lo. Everybody's going to recognize Hashem, not only the umos ha'olam down below, but even their spiritual representations up in Shemayim. Shiyakiru kol ha'emes v'yishtabdu l'kedushas malchuso yisbarach. Everybody should recognize Hashem and dedicate themselves to God. V'zehu v'yiraucha kol hama'asim. That's what it means, that all of your creations should fear you. Osam shalamata ba'olam hashafel v'yishtachavu lefenecha kol habruim. So this is, we're already in the uvechein tein pachtecha. I'm sorry, I didn't mention this idea, but we're already, if you can look into your Machzor now, we're already in he's going through here the words of uvechein tein pachtecha, right? That v'yarucha kol hamasim v'yishtachavu lefenecha kol habruim. He's saying that's all of the creatures down here, that's all the maisim, and that's all of the heavenly beings. So he tells us now a very interesting point, right? That Hashem is one, right? We know this idea, the yichud of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem. So that means that the only people who can truly tune in to Hashem's frequency is a people who are also one, right? If people are pirud, or if people are separate, so they can't tune in to the frequency of oneness, right? But Klal Yisrael, we are called Goy Echad. V'hine Yisrael, afal pi shebi hem rabim, even though we are many individuals, nikrayim Goy Echad, we are referred to as one people, right? V'hem ru'uyim l'shetischazek bam heraso yisbarach, right? Because we are one, even though we are many, but we resonate together as one. So we are the people who can tune in to Hashem's oneness, like his frequency of achdus is something that Jews can tune into. Omnam ha'umos hem rabim v'nifradim legamre ve'enam niskanim beyichud. Right? However, the other umos ha'olam, they are not one. There's no oneness among them. And therefore, on their own, they have no access to the frequency of Hashem. They have no access to that oneness. However, by subjugating themselves to Am Yisrael, again, spiritually speaking, by recognizing that Klal Yisrael is the one who is able to tune into the frequency of Hashem, so then they can receive it from us. Va'az mashem mitzad atzmam heim beribui kamasha kasafti, right? Even though they themselves don't have the ability to tap into it directly, hine mitzad Yisrael yishuva liskasher v'yachazru gam heim lebechinas achdus. But by tuning into us, they have the ability to then also tap into that oneness. Okay, and therefore they are also then able to tap into that oneness of Hashem. So now he's explaining the next words in the bracha when we say v'yasu kulam aguda achas lasos retzoncha b'leivav shalem, right? Those words v'yasu kulam aguda echas, that's talking about the goyim. It's not talking about the Jews. Right. So again, in your Machzor, if you see these words that you're following along, so just to understand what you're davening for, when we say v'yasu kulam aguda achas, they should all become one aguda, one bound up group. We're davening that's the tikkun of the goyim. Right. The Jews are already one. We're already able to tune into the oneness of Hashem, but we're davening that the goyim should be fixed, the non-Jews should be able to now make an Aguda Echas by tuning in to the Klal Yisrael, by again being Mishabed themselves to Klal Yisrael, and thereby tapping into the oneness of Hashem. Dahainu kemo ha'anafim v'habadim harabim shechozrim echad b'iskashem be'aguda. An aguda means a bundle, right? So what is a bundle? It's a lot of individuals that you bind together and it becomes one. So too, we're davening that the Goyim should be able to bundle themselves together and become one, recognizing Hashem. Umasha atam is gaber bahem lev ha'even, and even though now they've got a stone heart, nowadays they follow Tumah and they sway away from Hashem. Hine oz yitukno believe mitukan. But then when the Geula is going to happen, when the Gilui of Malchus of Hashem is going to happen, they're going to be fixed with a fixed up heart. So again, when we see these words in our Machzor, we're not davening for us, we're davening for them. We're davening that the Goyim should be mitukan when the Malchus of Hashem is revealed in the world. V'hine hayodim sisrei anhaga be'emes yodim, people who know how the world really works know sha'afal pi shelafi hanira ha'olam nezav lemikra ola bechiras b'nei adam legamrei. Even though the world looks like it's random and it looks like everything is up to the bechira of people and what we do makes things happen over here, hine ashlita lefanav lasos mashiachbos. We all know that really it's up to Hashem, and Hashem is the one in control. Ubezos ashlita yitakin olamo al kopanim. And we recognize that ultimately Hashem can fix the world when it's the time. So that's what we're saying in that next line in the davening. Kimo shiyadanu. We want the Goyim to recognize, just like we know already, that the dominion of the world is up to Hashem, and that Hashem can do whatever He wants over here. We're davening that they understand this also, that they understand that the shilton, the dominion, is only with Hashem. Okay, so this is the first paragraph of the davening. Uvechein tein pachtecha. Okay, that's what that paragraph is talking about. So that's really focusing not on Am Yisrael. That first paragraph is really focusing on the Goyim of the world, all the other nations. Like I keep on saying, Judaism is, I think, unique in this respect when it comes to the other monotheistic religions. We don't believe that all the Muslims and Christians are going to be cast into a lake of fire or anything like that. We believe they're going to be fixed. They're going to come around and recognize the Achdus of Hashem, right? And that's what we're davening for in the first paragraph. The next paragraph is Uvechein tein kavod, right? So what's that davening for? The next paragraph in davening. V'hine tzarich sheteda she'af al pi she'Yisrael mitzad atzmam kvar hem divcharim u'mekudashim. Right? We are, in our essence, we are holy and we are chosen. U'me'utarim ba'atrosav yisbarach, and we are crowned with the crown of Hashem. Right? So that's our natural state. Right? However, what looks like in the world is not like that. Hine ansha olam kulo bekol chalakov eno niskan. However, until the world is not fixed, gam Yisrael ena megim latachlis ma'alasam. We can't reach our true state of highness of our maila, all the while that the world is not yet fixed. Amnam kishikvar yizgalam malchus yisbarach bolamo. However, once Hashem is able to reveal Himself in the world, v'yishlo tato v'yichbe harak harai, and the good is going to be primary and the ra is going to be subject. Az yirshu Yisrael ma'lasam b'shleimus. So then we're going to be able to really be shalem with our state. So similar to the Malchus of Hashem, in Shemayim, in the spiritual world, we are already holy and chosen, and right, we're already the top. However, in the physical world, we're not like that. The physical world is still messed up. So we're davening here, v'chein tein kavod la'amcha, that the kavod that we're davening for is that we should be recognized as the chosen people here in the world, but that's only going to happen when the tikkun happens. So when we say v'chein tein kavod la'amecha, we're not davening that, okay, Goyim should start respecting us more, and people shouldn't be, disgusted with us, and, in this world as it is now. We're davening, because that's bound to happen. It's bound to be that as part of the broken state of the world, Klal Yisrael is not recognized as the people who we are. But when the Malchus of Hashem is going to be revealed, then we're going to be respected. So that's what we're davening for. We're davening for the respect that we are owed only once the world is fixed. V'dalid mine toven is karim kan. Keneged dalid osius Hashem baruch hu. Yisrael. Okay, now he's going to explain to us, there's like a Kabbalistic idea here, that the 4 letters of Yud Ke Vav Ke, so for each one of those letters, there's a different aspect of kavod that Klal Yisrael is going to get. So he's going to explain to us that now, right? V'haino, kavod, v'tihila, tikva tova, upischon peh. Right, so these are the 4 things that we're davening for: respect, praise, good hope, and eloquence, right? Pischon pez, the ability to speak well, right? And those are the 4 things that we daven. If you're following along in the Machzor, those are the 4 things that we are davening for: kavod, tihila, tikva tova, pischon peh. V'hine l'shetischazek hakadusha karoi tzarich shiu Yisrael be'eretz Yisrael. In order for this to happen, we need to be in the place that we're supposed to be, right? Kihem ama nivchar v'hi haaretz nivcheres. Right? It's not enough for us to be in Galus anymore. When we're going to be fixed, we have to be in the place that we're supposed to be, which is the physical land of Israel. Ubi Yisrael yimloch melech mibeis David shuha melech hanivchar. So it's going to be the Am hanivchar in the Eretz hanivcheres with the Melech hanivchar, which is Malchus beis David. And that's what the rest of the tefillah is telling us in this paragraph. Uvonik sharim kol Yisrael likasher b'kedusha. Then we're all going to be bound together in this holiness. V'im echad me'atonai me'ela chaser eina kedusha mischazekes karaui. We need all of these aspects to be fulfilled, all of the criteria. So we have to be the recognized nation in the recognized land with the recognized malchus. All of that has to be said. That's what we're davening for, the end of this paragraph. That's why after we daven for Klal Yisrael to be crowned, so to speak, and recognized, therefore we daven that it should be Simcha Artzecha, Sasam Lirecha, then Malchus Beis David, right? Utzmichas Karen, the Ben Yishai B'mheir B'yameinu, right? So then again, paragraph 2 is talking about Am Yisrael and the state that Klal Yisrael is going to reach once the world is fixed. So paragraph 1 is the Umos HaOlam. Paragraph 2 is Am Yisrael. Then it goes on from there, right? The next paragraph is Uvechein Tzadikim. It's going to explain to us over here that even within Am Yisrael, there are different levels of people, and each one of those levels of people is going to be recognized and find their place. And that's the 4th, the 4th aspect of the tefillah. So I'm not going to read through the whole thing inside, but you could see what he's saying when you look through the Machzor. I just want to skip now quickly to the last paragraph before we wrap it up. So let's take a quick step back. So we've davened, right? Uvechein Shimcha Yiskadesh B'Olam Echad. Number 1, Hashem needs to be recognized. That's the Gilui of the Malchus of Hashem, which I said that's not in our Nusach, but that's what's behind the scenes to all of this. Then Uvechein Tein Pachtacha. When that happens, the Umos HaOlam are going to be fixed. When that happens, then Klal Yisrael is going to be fixed. And we're going to be back in Eretz Yisrael, and Malchus Beis David is going to be crowned, and everything is going to be back where it's supposed to be. And then even within Am Yisrael, we'll see there's Tzadikim, the Chasidim, Yireim, all those different levels are also going to be fixed. So all of that is what we're davening for, that things should be back to where they're supposed to be. And now we're going to see where it is that we can daven for our personal bakashos. V'hine hamatzav hatov sheyishar bo ba'olam hu shiyu abruim b'chol ha'achanai mitzdareches. When this is all going to happen, when the Malchus of Hashem is going to be revealed, so everybody in the world is going to have whatever they need to serve Hashem best. Umalchuso yisbarach tiyeh mizgalis aleim tamid, and it'll be consistent that Hashem's Malchus will be revealed. And we're going to get goodness after goodness, right? All the good of Olam Hazeh we're going to get, because all of that is going to help us to serve Hashem. Ki hinei hu yisbarach shemo bilti bal tachlis v'tuvo bilti bal tachlis. Hashem is infinite and His goodness is infinite. Ubiyoso shora aleim miskasher bam yimtu mekablin tov below tachlis. And when Hashem is ruling over the world, so that is going to enable us to get all the good that we want. And that's when we say the word v'simloch, right? Going on in the davening, we say v'simloch Hashem. We crown Hashem as the king. V'hu ma she'amar kasav l'dor v'dor ki malchusa yisbarach yila netzach nitzachim v'zuchim lo nenim bo netzach nitzachim. A person who taps into the malchus of Hashem when it's ruling over the world, so that person is able to tap into all of the goodness of the world lenetzach nitzachim. So what that means is as follows, according to, Kabbalistically, or according to the Kavanah that the Ramchal is explaining to us, the place where we can focus on our personal needs is in that word, v'simloch. When we say that word, v'simloch, after we've just davened for the tikkun of the world, after we've davened for the gilui of the malchus of Hashem, and we've davened for all the goyim and all the Jews and all of Klal Yisrael and all of the land of Israel, all of that we've davened, it should be fixed. Ultimately, what's that all leading to is v'simloch, that Hashem should rule. And like he's explaining over here, when Hashem rules, that is the conduit through which we get all the good that we need to serve Him properly. So what that means is that when we say this word v'simloch, right, we can there pause and not say words, but you could be thinking in your head, Hashem, these are the things that I feel that I need in order to do my avoda to you. In order for me to be able to contribute to your malchus being revealed, these are the things that I need. I need please, I need that job. Please, I need that, to have a baby. I need a shidduch. I need whatever it is. The simloch, right? We're davening that Hashem's malchus should break through and reign over the world. In that word is where we can be focusing on our personal bakashos. Because as you can see, the structure of the davening is not about us. It's not about me and my needs and what I feel like I need in order to serve you. I'm davening for a much, much, much bigger thing to happen. I'm davening for the tikkun of the universe to take place. However, we still are people, and we still do have our needs. And it's in this word, v'simloch, that we can, again, pause and think in our mind, Hashem, I want these things can help me be mamlich you, right? If you'll give me these things that I feel like I need, these are the things I think I can use in order to crown you as king and better play my role in making all of this happen. So if you want to pause at this word, v'simloch, and pack in your thoughts of the personal needs that you have for yourself and your friends, your family, etc. So that's what I do. But as you could see throughout the whole rest of the davening, what we're focusing on is the world being fixed and the whole tikkun happening through the gilui of the malchus of Hashem, right? We're not focusing on our sort of petty needs and the things that we feel that we need in order to serve Hashem better. However, there is a place for that, and that's when we say that word v'simloch. There we can focus in and ask Hashem for what we want. Certainly, also just throughout any of the other places in davening where we ask for stuff, let's say like Avinu Malkeinu. For sure, Avinu Malkeinu we should say with Kavana, and we can certainly ask for the bakashos in Avinu Malkeinu, and also anywhere else where there are places where there are personal bakashos, we could certainly focus on our needs. However, we should not lose sight of what the whole approach to tefillah is on this day, and that is not thinking about myself and my petty personal lack, but the world is lacking and the world is broken, and my tefillos are the ones that are going to be able to fix up the world. And I'll just finish with this, that if there was ever a time in our history, certainly in my lifetime, obviously I'm hoping always the Chol Yom Sheyavo, that Mashiach should come and the Geula should come. However, I don't think there's ever been a time in my life that the world was in a state where it actually felt realistic, practically speaking. None of us have ever lived through a time like what we're living through now. And, Many times when if like the Gula would have just happened, it would have been like surprising. I don't think it would be surprising to anybody at this point if the
You
Gula
know,
actually happened. Klal Yisrael is in a crazily precarious state like we have not been in generations. Eretz Yisrael is in a state of war on all different fronts, and nobody knows where anything is headed. And it's certainly very good that we seem to be defeating Hezbollah in the north, and that Nasrallah, Yamach Shemo is dead, and all of these things. But nobody knows where this is all headed. And if there was ever a time in our lifetimes that a geula was like practically, made sense that it would happen any minute, I don't think we've ever been living in a time like this before. So we should all focus our tefillos. God forbid, don't slack off and say, like, what is my tefillah worth? No, every single one of you, your tefillah is the one that's going to bring the geula and the gilui malchus shemayim. And we should be zocha to spend, if not Rosh Hashana, then Yom Kippur together, Mir Hashem, in the base of Mikdash.
pretty crazy with your sisters in Israel right now.
I'm sorry. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. Daven well, and we'll see you hopefully next week for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur davening overview. Mir Hashem. Okay.